Diversity and Inclusion in TV, Radio and Film. I'm doing this because it's really important to discuss how this industry's approach to representation of people from diverse communities such as my good self. I'm British, I'm Pakistani, I'm a woman. So as you can imagine, this is really, really important for me, not just for me, but there's many people like me who work in this business who want this discussed and the environment changed. Industry experts and decision makers, media companies are under a lot of scrutiny at the moment, and many are, being confronted with the fact that their places of work are not as diverse as they should be, and we need to create change on this matter. In my interview series, I catch up with a different industry professional each week, and my guests share their experiences, their thoughts, their opinions, and ideas on how we can affect positive change. This week, I am speaking to Emma Butt. She is a dubbing mixer, an ADR recordist, and a sound editor. And she also has happened to work on many, many huge projects, including Game of Thrones, EastEnders, and Doctor Who, just to mention a few. Welcome, Emma Butt. How are you?
I'm really good. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. So Emma, straight in, tell us about your experience of working in the sound departments of this business.
Well, I'm half Pakistani, half Irish myself, and obviously a woman. And I am usually one of the only women on a sound team of all white men. And I've been in the industry 13 years now. And I spent
Have you seen any kind of progress in those 13 years?
Slightly, but not enough. I was in a very odd situation where Ireland, which personally I find very backwards as a country in a lot of ways, was more progressive when it came to having women in the sound department. So back home, there was myself and another woman who were staff. There were two other women that I knew were staff at another company. And we had two other women who were freelancers who always worked with us. So I was surrounded most of the time by a team that wasn't necessarily 50-50, but had a good range in terms of gender. Diversity, not so much. Everybody was white. When I came to the UK, it was actually worse.
And how long have you spent in the UK?
I've been here 5 years now.
Okay.
And yeah, I came over and I worked in 3 separate companies in my first 3 years here before going freelance. All 3 companies, I was the only woman in the sound department.
And the only person of diverse heritage, maybe, or not?
In the sound department, yes. There was no one else who was diverse.
And why do you think this is, Emma? Why do you think there's a deficit of women and those from, diverse backgrounds in the sound departments of this industry? I mean, don't get me wrong, there is a deficit all around, but today, for the purposes of this interview, because of the roles that you're involved with, we are focusing on the sound departments.
There's definitely sound is often forgotten about. That's the best way to describe it. So when diversity initiatives are introduced within film and TV, they always focus on the job roles that everybody is aware about. So it's always producers, directors, picture editors. But sound is almost like the forgotten cousin that no one ever thinks about and no one ever addresses.
And why do you think that is?
It's because it's a skill that no one really understands. I mean, editing, when you think about it, it's visual. You can see the changes happening in front of your eyes. With sound, good sound you never notice. Good sound, you should just be able to watch a film or TV show and you're not going to be, distracted by good sound. It's just going to draw you in more. So people have a very little understanding of what the skill actually involves. So they just kind of ignore it and they pretend that it's not there and that it's not important. And that kind of trickles down into diversity statistics as well. So none of the plans that ever get put into place about addressing diversity ever come anywhere near us. So unless people like myself and other women and other people from diverse backgrounds speak up and start trying to make change, nothing's going to happen.
Mm. And I know that you've done some research into this. Can you just share details of that?
Yeah, of course. So last year, the Lenny Henry Institute for Diversity reached out to me and they had seen that I was banging my drum on Twitter for the past few years saying sound needs addressing. We need to, resolve this. There's no diversity. And they asked what my plans were, what I was planning on doing, and I was planning to do this research independently, which we eventually linked up and did together. So I looked at the highest rated TV shows over a 3-month period and the sound teams involved in each of those TV shows.
And this is just UK productions, yeah?
This is just UK, and I suppose kind of Ireland as well, because we've got the same TV shows. But yes, it's not United States based. I did have some shows that were made in the US, but I deliberately had to leave them off because I didn't want the data to be flawed. So yeah, it just looked at all of those teams, and the results were shocking. Out of 60 job roles, there was one person of mixed race heritage across all of them.
Wow, that's quite astonishing. 60 job roles.
Yeah.
And these are huge productions, no doubt, because if you were looking at the top shows, then there's going to be a requirement for more than one sound person on, multiple productions.
Yeah, completely. So what I did was I focused on the 3 main job roles, because the highest rated TV shows were not specifically one genre. So it crossed over from entertainment shows, drama, and I think, documentary. Each of those different genres are going to have different requirements for how many people are involved in sound. So a documentary, you might just have one, and they look after the sound editing and the mixing. With entertainment shows, you might have 2, so someone who does the sound editing and someone who does the mixing. And then with drama, you can have a team of a Foley artist, a Foley recordist, a sound editor, a dialogue editor, an ADR supervisor, a re-recording mixer, and you could have multiples of those people. So in order for it to be consistent, I decided to focus on sound editing, dialogue editing, and dubbing or re-recording mixing. So there could have been even more people added onto those 60 job roles.
But you focused on that. Now, Emma, doing research of this nature, one, it's a huge undertaking, so bravo you. And second, it's a collation of data. So there's an accuracy required within this. So talk to me about that. How did you ensure that it was really legitimate data that you could present to people?
So I decided on a 3-month period that was still close enough that I could find all of the content online. So I deliberately chose the autumn period of 2019 because a lot of those TV shows were still going to be on streaming platforms. So I used a combination of IMDb. So I checked out all the names on IMDb first.
And for those who are not familiar, IMDb is a online sort of resource, if you like, of who has done what in what job role and worked on which production.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So once I had kind of got my main names off there, I then went and found every single show on any platform that I could, double checked that the credits on screen were as IMDb had said. And then once I had done that, I tracked down all of their contact information. So I tried to find their email addresses through LinkedIn, the company profiles that they worked for, anything and everything. And I contacted them directly as well, just to make sure that they had worked on the show, what their job role had been, and then specific data like their age, their gender, if they had a disability, and what their ethnicity is.
And were people happy to share the information?
Yeah, I was actually very, very surprised. There was only one person who got back to me and said, I'm not completing this, but it wasn't in a rude way. They just said, I don't do surveys and I'll explain to you some other time why. And I was like, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
There was 4 people who just didn't respond. So make of that what you will. And then everybody else was actually very encouraging and responded and said, we really appreciate you doing this. This is a really good thing to do. If I can help you in any other way, please let me know.
And what kind of things did they share about their experiences?
The ones specifically that had worked on the highest rated shows, I didn't ask them any more questions. But what I decided to do instead was I needed personal stories. So obviously I have faced issues myself in the industry being a woman, but I knew that there was going to be worse stories out there. So I put out an open call and I contacted people that I knew who were specifically from diverse backgrounds or who were women and I knew had faced challenges. And I interviewed them anonymously to give them some, protection. And that was probably the most harrowing data that came up in the report.
And are you able to share any of that with us?
Yeah, of course. So one of the participants was a man, black man, and he told me that he felt he couldn't go along to meetings sometimes with new clients unless he brought a white male colleague with him. And while he was telling me this story, I was shocked, and I said, "Oh my God, I can't believe that." And he said, "Why are you saying, oh my God? Why are you saying you can't believe this? This is how it works. This is what we have to do." And I recently spoke to an actress who's of African heritage as well, and she said, "Yeah, that's not surprising. All of us go through that." And I think that was one that really just made me feel so sick that this is what people are experiencing. The fact that they feel they have to bring someone white along with them to a meeting with a new client in order to get the work because they want to put the client at ease because of their ethnicity. There was another case where a woman had decided to go freelance after being staff in a facility for years. And she met with a sound supervisor who was male. And sound supervisors are the people who hire the sound teams for high-end drama and feature films. So she had a meeting with this guy and he said, "Well, I like you, I like your work, but what if you get into a relationship with one of the guys on my team and it doesn't work out?"
So hold on. Right. One, the first story you shared is just shocking. Two, the second story you shared is also shocking for different reasons. So it was an all male department. So what's to say the men couldn't have got together, had a relationship? Why is it always why was the focus on the woman? That's just so bizarre.
Yeah. And the thing is, it was also making an assumption about her sexuality.
Precisely. That's exactly what I'm saying. And make an assumption about the sexuality of those already working with him.
But that's how outdated the views
Yeah.
are of the people in sound. And that's where our biggest problem is. There are still people in hiring positions within sound departments who have very, very outdated views and have no intention of trying to educate themselves or bringing those views up to date with what's happening in the world. And that's the battle we're against. And until those people go, you know?
Yeah. So Emma, I'd just like to make a point. I mean, these stories are shocking and nobody can deny that. But critics could say, well, why aren't these people speaking up? So can you share, some of the reasons people don't speak up? Because it's not an easy thing to put your head above the parapet and speak up.
No, not at all. And I don't blame them for not speaking up because as soon as you speak up, you become a target and you worry about if you're going to be hired because the attitude can then be, well, you're just seen as a troublemaker.
Mm.
You're just seen as being too difficult. I mean, I've been branded that myself before when I've spoken out about unfair treatments. I've been labeled as difficult and problematic. And I won't get into the full story, but it was basically a situation where I was being treated very differently to a male colleague when a problem arose with a client. Because I spoke up, I was branded all these different things. So if that's just a case of me speaking up because of gender equality, for someone to then go and speak up about, inequality because of your race, I don't blame them for not wanting to do that.
Yeah, it's very tricky approach because you have your livelihood at stake, yet you want to make a difference and you're caught between a very difficult situation. So your report, who have you shown this to and what kind of response are you getting?
So it was published in Representology, which is a new journal for the Lenny Henry Centre. We also got some really great press coverage with Broadcast Magazine and IBC. And it's been very, very well received. I will say, this is probably the controversial part. I haven't had any negative feedback. I haven't had anybody say anything aggressive or mean to me, especially on social media, which is what I was expecting. But I've also noticed the silence from a lot of people that I thought would publicly support this, and they haven't.
And
And
why do you think that is? Do you think people feel confronted by your findings and it's suddenly having to accept something, what the status quo is?
yeah, 100%. I think that they can no longer use the excuse of, well, those people just don't want to work in this industry. Because I've shown in the facts and figures that, and especially in the interviews, that there are people who are there, who are very talented, who want to work in this field, but they are not being given the same opportunities, or they're being treated differently because of something that is part of them. And that shouldn't be the case.
And these people or organizations, I don't know what you were referring to, the ones who remain silent, have you actually approached them again and said, what are your thoughts on this?
I haven't yet, but that's coming.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's individuals, but it's also organizations. And I think facilities as well. Anybody in hiring positions who's kept silent about this report and about these figures, that's a problem.
And
You,
absolutely, it's a problem. Yeah. So
you
how do you think you can penetrate that? How can you make a difference? And also, can you share with me those who have received this positively and are actively taking on your findings alongside those, like what's the way forward on this?
Well, the next step for me, which is something that I highlight in the report, is that I have a way to address this. It was done with Directors. Directors UK published a report quite a few years ago, and then a follow-up report. And it was about their continuing drama new directors scheme. And what it did was it looked at high-end drama, continuing drama within the UK, and saw that there was no diversity. There was very few women in directing roles. So they created a targeted scheme that took a director from, say, short form or entertainment or children's who wanted to progress. They assigned them onto a continuing drama with a director who was experienced already. They got them to shadow that director from pre-production all the way through to final post. Then they let them take on an episode or 2 episodes themselves and do the whole process from start to finish.
And I think what's important about what you're saying is this leads to the conversation about credits. It's so important to have a credit in this business. Without a credit, it's even more challenging to break through.
Yeah, completely. But it's not just the credit, it has to be paid.
Yes.
You can't give someone this opportunity without it being paid, because then you're just reinforcing this whole thing of, well, it's devaluing that person's skills, in my opinion. I'm sure people will disagree with me with that, but I think if you have any of these schemes in place, it has to be paid. You have to end up with a credit at the end, and it has to be done in a supported system. So that's what my aim now is to create a scheme that replicates that, but specifically for sound. And then we have people who are coming from diverse backgrounds at the very, very beginning of their career, but also at mid-career level, because there are 2 problem areas. And they will then have a credit, they will be paid, and they will be doing it in a supported environment.
Well, Emma, I really look forward to see how you progress on this, and I wish you all the best on this. And I think this scheme is like mentorship, but training as well, all in one, rolled in one, is really important. Do you think it could be rolled across all production areas?
Yes, I do think so. I think if we can make this a success in sound, there is no reason why this can't be done in any other role.
Okay.
But yeah, we just need the funding now to do it.
Yeah, well, this is it. Well, listen, I wish you all the best in this amazing endeavor. You're absolute, inspiration for doing this, and good luck with it. And actually, I'd like to invite you back to see how you get on. So do stay in touch. And thank you so much for sharing all the details about this. And of course, I will post details of this for anybody, a link to your report for anyone who is interested. Thank you so much, Emma.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I will post a link to Emma's report with this post so that you've got the opportunity to read for yourself her findings and what she's up to. Also, for those of you who are at entry level, who have recently joined the business, I'd really like to hear from you. Please get in touch, and particularly if you're a girl, young woman, female, or from a diverse background, I'd like you to share your thoughts and experiences of this. And of course, that's not just limited to those people. I'm interested to hear what everyone says. So if there's anything that's been discussed today that you'd like to comment on, then feel free to message me. As usual, if you want more details of my series, Diversity and Inclusion in TV, Radio and Film, then you can find more details across my social media platforms and on YouTube, where I post regularly details of who I'm interviewing and when. All that remains for me to say is a huge thanks for watching today, and see you next time.